So let's talk real quick on this whole, because I don't know if y'all have heard about this. Al Gore has thought about putting his hat back in the game.
Please God, no.
He's too old. Please God, no. Again, I agree with you. We need younger people. No, I agree.
I voted for Gore.
I would vote for him.
For Gore once. I stand behind that vote for Gore once. It was the very first time I ever cast a vote in my entire life. I stand behind that vote. No.
Which a Supreme Court cost him that vote.
A Supreme Court cost him that vote. I think that that vote was stolen.
No, he won.
He won.
Al Gore won.
I wish they would have fought.
But because fucking, was it Jeb Bush or?
It came down to Florida.
And guess who was running? But I'm like, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I honestly think at this point, like, there should be an age limit on, like, because if the retirement age is a certain age, that means you shouldn't be in politics anymore.
I don't disagree, but if people would go vote and people would vote correctly, we wouldn't need an age limit because they would just vote their old asses out.
Yeah, we wouldn't have the Mitch McConnells and the
exactly
RFK Juniors and who's that one that, oh, fuck, what's his name? Can't think of his name. But we also need to get old fucking MTG and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Again, they voted her awful personality back in. And the same with Boobert. Boobert switched.
Yes,
no, Boobert.
yes.
Boobert. They voted her back in. They knew who she was, and there was a good candidate. And they still showed up and voted for those two women.
But have you seen the good news that Jasmine Crockett is the new chairman of the Oversight Committee? Yeah, Jasmine Crockett.
I love her.
Oh my gosh, she is a spitfire.
She is.
What'd she say to MTG that one time? The Butch built bottle blonde?
Yep.
Butch built bottle blonde.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that's not exactly right, but it's something along those lines.
It had those words. It had all those words in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like there was a objection. Be like, "What'd you say?" I'm like, "Do I have to repeat it?"
Was it bleach blonde?
Yeah, bleach bottle.
Bleach blonde, butch-bodied bitch.
I don't think she said bitch.
I think she did.
I think she did.
I think she did.
There was a bitch in there.
I think there was.
I don't think they said bitch simply because you can't say bitch and fucking without saying, oh, we gotta have a sense of decorum.
Well,
which, like, that's another reason why, like, if I'm in politics.
A sense of fucking decorum.
Yeah, that's another reason why, like, if I was in politics, like, my language would get me in trouble simply because what the fuck?
When you stop trying to take away my rights as a human being.
Yeah, because I'd be like, y'all want to sit here and, like, let Travis Holman like spit the nonsense and shit that he wants to say, but you want to object to my decorum? Fuck you. That's my decorum.
I'll give you your fucking decorum when you stop trying to take away my fucking rights.
When we actually sit here and do things that actually benefit the people instead of, trying to push anti-DEI and all that nonsense, go fuck yourself.
We shouldn't need DEI. Like, we really shouldn't need it, but we do.
Of course we need DEI. DEI is just, we need equal opportunity. Why? Because...
Yeah, but we shouldn't need it because it should, like I'm saying, in an ideal world, we wouldn't need it. Because in an ideal world, people wouldn't care if you're a woman or you're black or you're gay.
But we're never going to be there.
We're never going to be there, which is why we need DEI.
Well, currently we'll never be there. Hopefully one day we will actually elect people and put people in position based on their qualifications and not a good old party system.
Never in the, human nature.
Not in our lifetimes.
Not in our lifetime.
And I will agree.
I'm just saying, like, and I'm sure you could say the same. How many times when a woman walks in a room, like when I was a soldier in the Army, I walked into a room, and often I was young, and I was the only woman. I was E7 walking in the room. I was probably the only woman walking into that NCO board of 10 or 15 people. All men, and I knew 5 of them thought I slept my way there. 5 of them thought I was an idiot and needed to be trained. And then there might be 4 or 5 who thought, oh, she's going to be good. And several of them were thinking, like, how can we destroy her and sleep with her? In every room. In every room you walk into. And I'm a white woman.
That's the truth of being a woman.
Yeah, and then add any color to my skin, and it just degrades from there.
Who was that one censor? She was a Neil, black lady when I started politics.
Meryl Bullock, Neil?
Meryl Bullock Neil. She told me a story one time. She's a doctor.
Doctor Neil.
And
judge, she's a lawyer.
She told me this story where she had given this idea for something and nobody took her seriously. And she's like, why is nobody taking me seriously? And then she talked to one of her like white male colleagues and was like, listen, I'm going to put forward the same idea that you have. And I promise you it's going to pass.
And it did.
And she's like, why? And he's like, look at me.
It happened on the council. I could say one thing, and I was the horrible person on the council, and then the person across the way, the tall white guy, could say it, and it was like, oh, we should just listen. This is... Yeah.
And that's definitely a problem.
That just goes
predominantly in the South, but across the nation.
Everywhere.
That just goes to speak that like racism is a problem, but sexism is also a problem. And there's a story written, and I can't remember in what paper it was in, but there's a story that was written about these two colleagues who, like, this man did not understand why his female colleague couldn't get as much work done as he could. And so she was like, it's because no one listens to me.
Yep.
And he was like, I don't understand. So they changed
email
signatures.
addresses.
They changed signatures for like a little bit of time. And he realized that all of his emails started coming back with these snarky responses. And he was like, is this what you deal with daily? This is what I've dealt with my entire life.
Oh, it's like Hexeth.
Hedgehog? I call him Hedgehog.
Yeah. Or what is he, Secretary of Defense or whatever?
Yeah. Something like that.
Former or currently or whatever the fuck he is. The drunk who likes to spill secrets on Signal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. People don't realize he slept his fucking way up.
Yes.
He slept his way up to his position, but
He
nobody says
absolutely
a
did.
fucking thing.
Because he's a
Because it will
man.
go, good on you, old boy. But see, here's the thing. If you're dumb enough to let somebody sleep their way up, regardless of their sexual orientation, who's the real fool? The idiot that you put in position or the idiot that allowed them to be in that position?
Top didn't actually sleep their way to the top. What they did is they were sexually harassed into the top.
I won't disagree with you, but at the same time, like if you're a man that's dumb enough to sleep with somebody just so that they can get a position,
Let me just say this though.
you're fucking stupid.
They're all like talking about religious and bowing down and the knee and including religion, being led by some of the worst fake Christians in the world. And that is what is so galling. He committed adultery. They literally had to change the rules to let him be Secretary of State because he was an officer in the United States Army, and it was a UCMJ offense if you committed adultery. He was married to his first wife when he got his newest wife pregnant. He was still married. He committed adultery. They both had to get a divorce to get married.
Well, the current goddamn president is
Exactly. So if people wonder why your pews are empty and why people are turning away from religion, I told you before, because religion has never in the history of the United States or in the world taken the side of the oppressed, stood up and enforced their values. We talk about, he's the most... When evangelicals say President Trump is our president, it's like, I'm sorry, I'm out. I mean,
He shouldn't be.
And I know that you guys are atheists, but I am not an atheist.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Like, that doesn't matter. But I'm not. But I'm not going to church because I'm not praying with people who think that I'm too white or my sons are too brown or they would not marry my son with whomever he wanted to marry. And they don't think that that I'm capable of making my own decisions about my body. I'm not praying and I'm not going to any church that doesn't do that whole, every piece of that. I'm not, my family values.
That is something that I respect the hell out of because either you believe, so here's the thing. Before I became an atheist, I read the Bible. And either you believe in what Jesus taught and you worship Jesus or you don't.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you cannot call yourself an actual modern day Christian.
And also, you don't go into the whole, like, and another reason why I fucking dipped out is because if you follow any of the other teachings of like John and Paul and all that shit, you're literally going against Jesus. Because if you look at the teachings of Peter when it comes to marriage versus the teachings of Paul when it comes to marriage, they're two different things. Because Peter will say, yeah, no, you have one wife, you're loyal to her, and that's all you are. But Paul will sit there and be like, oh, no, you got your wife, and then you got your concubines, and then you got to marry your brother, sister, and all this other shit. And then Jesus is like, you love who you love.
See, and that's the thing is like either you follow, and I don't care what part of the New Testament you want to believe is from Jesus and what part you think is not from Jesus, because it's not always completely like simpatico from chapter to chapter.
And it's been fucking rewritten so many damn times.
So many times. It was rewritten once, very famously, so that a man could get a divorce.
King James.
Oh.
King James.
So, I mean...
And Henry created his own religion.
And Henry created his own religion.
So he could behead his wives.
So he could kill his wives, yeah, basically. Because he was like, you're not giving me what I need. I need a son. You're not giving me a son. Which we know now, with modern science, is likely not the woman's fault. You know, like it's his fault. Like, well, not fault, because it's not your fault if you don't have a son. Like, it's genetically speaking, only the man can decide if he's having a son or a woman. Only the man's DNA, only the man's chromosomes. So, wasn't exactly the woman's fault. They got beheaded anyway, because that's just the way things worked back then. But, yeah.
Still.
And still, because there are still people today who blame women if you aren't given a son.
Well, look what China did for decades and decades.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. They had that whole
one child, and if it wasn't a boy, then China is a deficit for men and women because they aborted too many of the women babies, so they have a deficit in their population of men to women.
And they also weird thing on China is like we're told all this horrific things about China. But if you actually read into it, the Chinese people don't pay nearly as much taxes as we do. In China, when you buy a house, you pay taxes on it once. When you buy a vehicle, you only pay taxes on it once. There's a lot of things in China, and they're trying to change it. But there's a lot of things about China that we're told that are just straight up not true.
But I would also say
now the Chinese government does do eminent domain a lot more often,
freedoms and protection
and things like that. Like, to be a little crass, the Chinese government when it comes to porn is like, no, absolutely not. There's certain things that but when it comes to like taxes and things, it's one and done.
Which goes to show that like even like a lot of the things that we know about the Chinese government go very much against what we believe as Americans. And a lot of what we know is about the Chinese government is just false.
Well, a lot of things we believe about the American government is not true.
That is true. That's actually where I was going to go with that. Is like,
oh yeah, the American government is ran by corporations.
That, like the American government is like above all and like the fairest of the land and like the only true democracy. And like, no, it's not.
Not anymore.
No,
we're not even a democracy anymore. Are you kidding me?
We're an oligarchy.
We're an oligarchy.
Yeah, we're a country
run by technocrats and the rich.
We're a country run by corporations. We're a country run by a group of fascists.
But we knew that going in, and we knew what was on the brink. I mean, we knew going into to this election what was at stake. Americans knew. And there was. You cannot tell me that nobody who pulled that ticket for Trump did not know what was coming.
I think it's been like a group. I think this country's been run by a group of corporate fascists since World War II.
Well, even before then, on and off. All through the times.
The Gilded Age was a prime example. Yeah, you're right. And the whole Rockefeller group. Right?
But this is 10 times worse.
Oh, yeah. It is progressively gotten worse.
But worldwide, the problem is worldwide. Worldwide, we have allowed a small portion of human beings to own a far too great amount of income and money. We've allowed them to amass too much power. We have only 5 newspaper outlets in the United States of America, and they're owned by very rich people who now own that message. But that is happening worldwide. The income, like what is it? 10% of the people own 90% of the income in the United States. That's everywhere. That is not just the United States. And that is the problem. They all know each other. Why do you think we're not taking on Russia? Why do you think now they're in bed with China? Because they all know each other. It's all about money.
And money moves across because we live in a global economy now. Money moves across,
Brandy and I have had this conversation with, if you want to be powerful, don't be a politician.
Right.
Well,
Because if you want to be powerful, just be rich, because the rich really don't need passports to move in this world. They can just go wherever the fuck they want.
and I don't think that we should have billionaires anymore, because I think that once you reach $1 billion, you should get a certificate that says, yay, I beat capitalism. And then all the rest of your money should just go towards funding the world.
Oh, that's called socialism.
Yes, well,
That is a bad word.
Well, I think they should at least pay their own fair share. Like, why is Social Security struggling? Because they capped it. Why do I, as a regular person, have to pay a certain percentage of my income, but you, as someone with an enormous amount of income, not have to pay that same percentage? It's not how much money, it is your percentage. It's in taxes. Trickle-down economy does not work. It's what's broken the world.
I think we should go back to the old ways like the Greeks and the Romans used to do, where they used to hold like festivals and stuff, where the rich would compete on who could contribute the most to society.
I think that would be a great idea. But I think that we should just pay our fair share. And to be honest, I think that if everyone really did pay their fair share, we probably wouldn't have billionaires. But I don't see why we need billionaires. I don't think, if one person, if one monkey hoarded all the bananas, we would study that monkey. What's wrong with that monkey that's hoarding all the bananas?
But also,
when one person hoards all the money, we're like, congratulations.
But in a survival aspect, if you had one monkey that was hoarding all the bananas, the rest of the monkeys would kill that fucking monkey.
Eat the rich.
They would be like, why you have all the bananas and we don't? We're going to kill your ass.
I say tax the rich.
And-
Tax
and-
the rich.
Tax the rich.
Tax the rich.
And that's what I mean when I say eat the rich. I don't mean actually go out and carve them up like cannibals.
I don't know.
I don't want to eat Jeff Bezos. I don't think he tastes very good.
Well, given his money and his diet, he might. Now, Elon, with the amount of ketamine,
He has a very chemical taste, I'm sure.
and the fact that you're going to let a little fucking kid punch you in the face and give you a black eye, what the hell's wrong with you?
Well, he's not exactly an ideal father from what all of his other children have said, so I'm not really surprised.
Yeah, you seen that latest video, right? Where
Yes.
he's in the Oval Office and he's got a black eye, and somebody's like, "What's wrong with your eye?" And he was like, "Well, I haven't been to France recently." And somebody was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, But then he was like, "Yeah, no, I was sitting in my house and little X, I guess that's his name."
Yeah.
The child's name, he was like, go ahead and punch me. And when he did, the kid punched him in the face and gave him a black eye. And I'm like, why would you let a child punch you in the face? And for two, a child should not, there's no...
What are you teaching that child by allowing them to?
How?
What are you teaching that child about allowing them to punch you in the face? And what have you already taught that child that child wants to punch you in the face?
Also, a child at that age shouldn't have that much power.
Because I guarantee...
Also, did you not learn to roll with the punch?
I guarantee if we looked at our great nephew and said, punch me in the face, he'd be like...
Yeah,
he's like
Vincent?
four- he's
Yeah,
like
no.
4.5. And he'd be like, no.
Right.
Because he doesn't want to punch me in the face because he's never been taught to hate me. He has no reason to hate me. I've done nothing but been good to him his whole life. So, he doesn't want to punch me in the face.
Yeah, and what kind of idiot
So
is
what
going to
is-
sit there and
what
be
is
like,
little
yeah,
X-
no, punch me in the face?
What has little X been taught? What has little X been through? The little X wants to punch his daddy in the face.
Oh,
Oh my
and
god, that actually reminds me. There was this show called I can't remember what it's called, but it was on the best parenting techniques. And it was a competition. And in it, one of the kids punched the dad in the face because it was do anything you want to do day. And the little kid decided they wanted to punch their dad in the face. And the dad said he had never felt as a worse father than in that moment, because what have I done that my child uses his I can do anything day to cause violence and to cause violence towards me? But these are the questions that Elon Musk, I'm sure, is not asking.
because Elon is just...
He's a horrible human being. But
He is.
but again,
He's part of this whole era of just trolls are now occupying the White House.
Right.
Although apparently he has left government.
No.
No, he ain't left.
No.
He's just kind of dipped out for a second.
He paid way too much money for that seat at the table. He is there because he bought that presidency, and he's not releasing it.
Oh, yeah.
He's just going a little behind.
He's got so many government contracts.
He got what he wanted.
He dismissed so many lawsuits against him.
I agree. Sorry, I should have put air quotes.
But I'm still saying he's not gone. He's just not up front and center. I mean, he will still pull the strings.
Because, like, with him being up front and center and a lot of the stuff that he's been saying, a lot of people are like, you need to shut the hell up because you're making us look bad. Despite the fact that we got a bloated sack of Cheeto dust that can't complete a fucking sentence.
We have Stephen Miller, who's a Nazi. We have the architect of 2025 at the table. We have so many evil people at the table. And you know, we have Hedgehog, and we have Tulsi, what's her name? Gabbard. I mean, these are not good people. They are not intelligent. They are not capable of doing the job that they've been hired to do. They don't have enough of the skills.
What's that one who was posing with Border Patrol people?
No.
Not Tulsi.
Kristi Noem. Oh, you mean the one who shot her dog?
Kristi Noem.
Shot her dog.
Was that Kristi Noem? Yeah. Yeah, and then somebody pointed out the fact, but like, yeah, while you're doing costume changes and whatnot, I was actually securing the border. And it's like, you guys elected these idiots.
Right.
And then they go to town halls and like Republicans are like, don't hold town halls anymore.
Oh, yeah,
and the reason because is like, once they hold these town halls, all the Republicans are like, hey, assholes, we didn't elect you to do this. Well, you kind of did.
You did. I mean,
you were dumb enough to not...
For the people that were running against us, there are no surprises. There's no surprises. They said out loud. They wrote 2025. It's just like they knew what was coming. This is what the Republican Party has always wanted. The only thing is now you don't like it because it's you. You were happy for it to be somebody else.
So far into the And Then I Came For poem.
Yes.
We're hitting the white people, and then they're like, wait a minute. Like, that's how far we've gotten into the And Then I Came For poem.
Yes, exactly.
But a lot of people don't understand, too, that right now, the Hispanic community, Latin community, and things like that are the Jews of the 30s and the 40s.
I mean, basically, yeah. Like, that's...
When you have legal citizens, people who were born here were being snatched up and sent to fucking El Salvador, Venezuela, and shit like that.
Because wasn't unless you actually check the paperwork, and that's part of due
process. But then you turn around and say, no, these white South Africans who are going through quote-unquote genocide.
Losing their privilege.
And you have South African presidents with the agriculture commissioner, who the South African president is black, the agriculture commissioner, who is white, and also in the opposition party, both going, there's no fucking white genocide.
No, they're just losing their privilege. It's why, but them coming over here is the same as anti-DEI. It's anti-DEI is because white men
are fragile, insecure,
and are losing their
babies.
Privilege. If you think about it, statistically, more women are graduating college than men. Statistically, if you take 100 black women, you take 100 white people, the most educated population of the United States are black women. In the United States.
I was about to say the
population-wise, by their population numbers. Yeah. And it's because what happened? They told us the way out is through education. So women, and especially black women, got educated. And where did we go to work? We went to the government. Why? Because if we could get a government job, we were more protected with equality rules and equity. The rules were written. I'm going to make it further in government than I would in corporate America as a woman, because there was more equity and equality in government. Not that it was perfect, but it was there.
Yeah.
And so
It was closer to that ideal.
So the anti-DEI movement here is the same movement as South Africa and the white people saying we're being persecuted.
But when you've never been oppressed, removal of privilege.
Yes, removal of
feels
privilege.
like a privilege. Feels like oppression.
Yes.
But it's not oppression. It's not the same fucking thing. No one is taking you and putting you on slave ships.
You just don't qualify on paper anymore.
You just have to actually prove that you're qualified.
So Aaron Mayberry, who led the anti-DEI bill, published it, said that that a professor called him and said he didn't get a job because he is a white person. And white men are saying they're not getting jobs because black people and women are getting the jobs. There's no more quotas anymore. The difference is we're just better educated on paper than you were. Like, I was always hungry. Like, I was always I was a lifelong learner. I have 2 bachelor's degrees. I have a master's degree. You know, black women, they're working on their doctor's degrees, much younger. And men are, by the numbers, are not doing it what they used to.
They've never had to.
And I was about to say,
Never
and I
had
think
to be hungry like the rest of us.
and I was going to say, and the reason why is because for the most part, it was just given to them.
It has been. And
Or they
that's
took
why-
our ideas as their own and our work as their own.
Yeah, and their opinions, despite
that
being
happened to me, and I'm
Yep.
pretty sure that Karen said that happened to her, where like you say something and like you're not listened to, but then a man says the same thing, and all of a sudden it's like, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and I made that
That's
example earlier when I was talking about
Dr. Neal.
Dr. Neal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
Like, that's just a true story. That's like just true facts. For
Yeah,
women. And especially in like the further down, like, I don't want to say the further down you go, but like the further down you go, that like level of respect in this society, the worse it gets. Like, as a white woman, I'm not listened to, but one of my best friends, Britt, is a black woman. The shit that she has to go through
I was about to say,
is so much worse.
a black woman is probably the most disrespected and the most unheard demographic,
And the most educated.
but the most educated
Yes.
demographic in this fucking country.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is the cis white fragility, where there's this whole idea, well, if we lose this quote unquote superiority, they're going to turn the tables on us and do to us what we did to them.
But, you know, white women are just as, white women do the same thing. I mean, when it comes to discriminating against black women, we're part of that pot.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Not
there
just
are
men.
times when, like, I agree with Bill Burr, and it's just like, white women, y'all need to shut the fuck up and sit down and take your licks with the rest of us.
Like, there's white feminism, and then there's intersectional feminism, and like there's a problem that I have with white feminism, because it's very focused on like the white woman's problems instead of like the problems of women as a whole, which isn't always a problem of the white woman.
Which, like, but I also feel like, I guess it's because I'm a white man, I get to view this from a certain way, where they think that the same behavior that they did to people is going to be done to them. So anything that they can do to prevent it is great, without realizing, for the most part, that the people that had that behavior done to them do not want to do it to other people. And they want to focus on small groups that say, no, we will do. Because there is the new Black Panther movement has often talked about destroying white people. The old Black Panther movement had nothing to do with it. One of my fucking heroes, the chairman Fred Hampton, started the Rainbow Coalition. He was the fucking the Chicago chapter. Yeah, he went into the white neighborhoods and went, they teaching you white kids the same thing they teaching us black kids, but the only thing is y'all got a different perspective, but it's still the same thing, which is bullshit. So there's small cells.
Well, there always will be.
Yeah, and there always will be. There's small cells that
Of course they do.
That, you know, want to focus on anti-white and shit like that, but the white fragility focuses on that. And they'd be like, well, we don't want to be put on boats and chains and shit like that. I'm like, dumbasses.
You mean they don't want to be sent back to where they came from? Because no, if you're white, you didn't come from here.
Right. But like they don't want to be put in chains and forced on farms and labors and shit like that. But like you dumbasses don't realize
back to where my family came from.
You don't realize that a lot of those people who went through that shit don't want other people to go through that shit either. So just because you're going to lose your power to a group of people who, scientifically speaking, just because they have a different level of melanin than you doesn't mean they're different than you. There's no such thing as race.
We all know.
We're fucking humans.
We're all the same, you know.
We're one fucking species.
Yes.
The only reason race is a thing is because we've made it into a thing.
Race was created because a bunch of rich white motherfuckers wanted to justify slavery.
Well, I mean, race...
And that is scientifically fact. Like, rich, light-skinned Europeans created racism so that they can trick the poor light-skinned motherfuckers into thinking that the dark-skinned people were inferior to them so that they could be like, listen, we're going to give you the opportunities, even though we're going to put a lot of obstacles in your way, to be white and have all these chances to have the things we have, despite the fact that, you know, we're going to, you know, prevent it, especially you're red-haired and olive-skinned and things like that. But you will be considered, quote-unquote, white as long as you don't continue to rise up.
But world history
and fight against,
has always had slavery.
The Africans.
You know, world history has always had slavery.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, slavery has been a thing.
I'm not. It's always been wrong. I mean, I'm not making.
Oh yeah, no.
I don't.
You and I will fucking have the same conversation. Like slavery
the idea that you own another person is just the most fucking outrageous thing.
I think it's evil.
It's evil. Like it is evil. Like it's evil. It's outrageous. Like you own a person? How the fuck do you own a person?
Racism at its base is evil.
Yeah, slavery, like during the Romans, if you were a slave to a house, you actually had power. You could walk into any establishment and be like, I'm the slave of this house. And be like, oh, yes, no, here you go. Blah, 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 blah. But then, like, you get into, you know, this country, when slavery was happening, like, oh, I'm a slave of this house. But I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, you're still
a fucking slave. Get the fuck out of here. So slavery has definitely progressed into a worse way. Slavery has been a fucking thing since Mesopotamia and shit. It's definitely when the transatlantic fucking slavery movement happened, we definitely went, yeah, no, let's monetize the shit out of this instead of, you know, giving slaves a position. But slavery is just a shitty thing to begin with. And it's all been
understood the idea that you can own a person. There's a lot of things that I just don't understand. Like, you know, racism just doesn't make sense to me in general. Like the fact that because you have darker skin, you're a worse person. Like, just doesn't make sense to me. And
that's when, the whole race thing became, you know, a thing. But before that, like, I think slavery was this whole, we conquered this land, and now to help secure
we did it to Native
and defend our land and our control over this, you now belong to us.
The reason we slaughtered the Native Americans is because they fought back. We brought in the black people because they couldn't fight back, right? When they came in, they were already in chains, and they were not able to gather and fight back. We slaughtered, literally, you know, what is it?
And hell, we manipulated the
genocide. We did genocide. We really tried to do I mean, there's very few left, but you know, the
indigenous North Americans. And we also used,
and then we had to do that because they did fight.
And
back.
We think of genocide as just like the killing of a people, but that's not what genocide means. It's the wiping out of a civilization, which can be done through many means,
right?
Not just murder.
And
like when like the United States and also Canada, when we used to fucking kidnap Native American children and give them to white families to raise, like that is a form of fucking genocide. You're trying to wipe out a civilization by making people assimilate into your culture.
Well, Europeans didn't just do that, but like the Incas did that to the Mayans, and then the Aztecs did that to them. But
that also goes
the Europeans kind of perfected it in the sense where when we were committing genocide against the indigenous people, we sought out certain tribes that were like, if a certain tribe was a problem, like if we had problems with the Cherokee, we're like, hey, Mohawks, So if we help you wipe out this tribe, we'll give you this, but here's some blankets.
So, I mean,
disregard the fact that when you put these blankets on, you will contract smallpox and you will die.
You're going to have these small little lesion-like things on your skin, but don't worry about that.
Or better yet, we have this liquid that you will get addicted to, and it will destroy your liver very quickly, and you will just be driven to have it, because Europeans introduced alcohol to the indigenous people on a different level than what they had. They had alcohol, they had more herbal means and things like that, but once we introduced booze, fire water, shit. Indigenous people loved fire water, despite the fact it killed them fucking quickly.
Well, it was highly addictive. And it's something that they weren't used to. Just like smallpox, it's something that they weren't inoculated against.
Yeah. Europeans were like, fucking smallpox shit. We went to the plague.
It's
brought on by the Mongolians.
But I mean, we can complain about it, but what do you think we should do? What do you think we as a community or we as individuals?
I don't know. I don't have the answers. Like, I think that one thing that I can do is continue to educate myself so that I don't fall into those patterns. I think that another thing that I can do is vote for like people who have good ideas for what we can do moving forward. But then that's really frustrating because I vote for these people and then they don't fucking win, and then it's like, well, shit.
You don't win a war. You don't win all your battles.
I also think that the sensitivity war, like, I get that there are things out there that, we definitely shouldn't be light of. But when you have certain individuals that are trying to help and they have good intentions and things like that, but they may slip up with like small comments or things like that, like the whole cancel culture, certain things you definitely should be canceled on. But if you make a comment 10 years ago,
James Gunn,
not just James Gunn, but
I'm just using him as an example.
But and then that person later comes out and says, yeah, I apologize for that. That's not the person I am today. You don't allow people to grow.
Right.
That is a problem.
There's a difference between saying something stupid now and saying something stupid 20 years ago. Because if you said something stupid 20 years ago, you might not be the person you were 20 years ago.
But
if you said something stupid 20 minutes ago, you're probably still the person who said something stupid 20 minutes ago.
And that, I think, is part of the whole cancel culture thing. Because a lot of people during the cancel culture, which I'm glad it seems it has died out.
Well, but part of it, I mean, when we talk about the cancel culture, I do want to say some of it was just, I'm not having that bullshit anymore. Like, I understand that there's 15 minutes ago and 40 years ago, but overarching in the workplace, like when the Me Too movement and when this came in, I will tell you, I stopped allowing conversations. I canceled and said, no, you're not saying that to me, more than I did 10 years before all of that. So people do complain about it, but it's also turning the tide of saying, we are not going to allow that language, and I'm not going to tolerate that in the workplace, or in, you're not going to talk to me like that. You're not going to mansplain to me. And I think in the last 10, 15 years, women and minorities have stopped it. And I understand, and the backlash of people going, well, I could always do it before. Well, it wasn't funny before, and it's certainly not funny now, and I'm not tolerating it.
And that is,
but that's all part of that. They pick out, just like you're
pendulum.
saying, they pick out the extremism of, well, this person paid for something 40 years ago, not regarding the 50,000 people who had to stop saying, hey, baby, at work.
Yeah, because there's definitely a difference that I'm seeing in like workspaces. And I work for a very, very liberal company. Hurt them. You could tell in the emails that I got when the vice president sent out messages saying that we couldn't use our pronouns anymore in our email signatures because of Trump, like because he was going to pull, funding. Like it hurt him to say that because he was like, I don't want to take that away from you. That's ridiculous. But at the end of the day,
financially speaking, if we want to keep this machine running,
we want to keep saving lives
and saving lives.
Y'all got to pick your battles.
You can't have your pronouns in your email anymore. Like, hey, still use them on the side. Like, right? If you want to tell someone like, hey, this is my pronouns, like, still do that. Like, I don't Like the vice president was like, I don't really fucking care. But even at a very liberal company, like you see these, because before this, I worked at a very liberal company, Relationship Hero, and you could tell the difference in like the culture when Me Too happened, because it shifted from the way like my boss at Relationship Bureau, the way he would talk to me before was a little different than the way he would talk to me after, like just slightly. And this is a very liberal man who would never ever mean any harm, but it taught him a lesson of like, hey, I have to, like, I can't call her baby.
I can't. Yeah, and
Or
I don't, and
Sweetie.
I'm not sorry for that. I'm gonna say I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no.
I mean, but it's the same thing though. They pulled out the extreme instead of looking at what a difference it made in the middle for all of us.
Yeah.
So that I just say that, like, the cancel culture, they called it that because there were examples made. Yes, but for most of us, we just didn't have to, like. It's just like with my son. You know, I have a son who is gay, LGBTQ, and now if I hear someone start to say something anti-LGBTQ, I just stop them. I don't let them go 2 steps in. I just say, listen, I have a family member. I need you to stop. And I walk away. I cancel. That's cancel culture. I'm not going to deal with you talking that way. And I get to do that now. 15 years ago, I might have had to stay silent and not had the power.
Because now, you know, there's more people standing behind you being like, hey,
Exactly.
no, that's not okay.
And I'm not saying that the results haven't, that there hasn't been positive results, but what I'm saying that is when you have, and it always starts off kind of, I wouldn't say benevolent, but it always starts off with good intentions. It always starts off with, like what you said, with like the cancel culture and the LGBT and like the Me Too movement and even Black Lives Matter movement. It always starts off with good intentions, but then it gets kind of pulled in 2 different directions.
Or polarized.
And it gets polarized in 2 different directions.
But, I mean...
Because during the Me Too movement, it shocked some people at work when I hashtagged Me Too. And as a white male, they were like, wait, what?
Men can be victims too.
Wait, what? Because it, like, when the Me Too movement happened, and I do not work for... I work for a very conservative company. I'm not going to name it. Because they are, they can be a bit spiteful and shit, but they have had some incidences where a lot of questionable things happened. But they also, I work for a company where we definitely violate multiple, like, OSHA and just workplace.
I don't think you should say that. You need it.
Yeah, but
Well, don't be saying this stuff. You need a job.
we definitely do some things that, you know, are questionable. But I am known, and they know this, I am known as the resident liberal, and a lot of employees have actually been like, well, I don't know about this stuff, like, and then they'll be like, well, you need to talk to Harry. Why? Because of this. And then all of a sudden I'll have like employees come and be like, hey, so I was told to come talk to you about this. I'm like, oh, fuck, here we go. Like healthcare and other things like that.
How do I get on Obamacare?
Yeah. Like, I'm like, you don't actually have to take their health insurance. You can hop onto the Affordable Care Act and get affordable insurance because they don't meet all the requirements. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, you don't have to pay this amount of money. I've been doing it for a while now. So here you go. But yeah, I definitely work in a place. And then when I came out with the whole Me Too thing, and like a lot of the guys were like, oh, hang on a second. And not the same, say anything bad, because I work in like construction, building supplies. We are crude. And I myself have definitely done this. And it's because I work with a bunch of guys. And guys... like, despite our skin tone, we are fucking awful human beings. We will say things and do things to each other. It's just horrible. And it's just, a lot of times it's in joke.
Is it?
Yes.
Well, we'll say this.
Yes. Now, and I will say this. We've had some female individuals that have come to work with us, and a couple of guys behind the women's back will say something, and I'm like, really, guys? Really? And because we have to lift a lot of heavy things and whatnot and our job and whatnot. And we had this one lady who worked with us, and all the guys were like, oh, let me help you. And I'm like, why don't y'all step back and see if she could do it first? If she needs help, let her ask. And then she'll just look at me and be like, go ahead. If you need help, I'll help you. But I want to see if you can do it first.
I'm not going to assume that you need help because you're a woman.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, though, that shit's heavy. And if you can't do it, you can't do it. Ask for help. Because I know you two are looking at me like, motherfucker. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to sit there unless I get to know you and I know I can make these jokes and whatnot with you. I'm going to read the room. I'm going to make sure I can be joking and whatnot with you. If I can't, then I'm not.
But I just want to say, you reading the room, that's what I'm saying. Like 15 years ago, I had to be silent even though I didn't think it was funny. Now,
no.
Now I do not have to tolerate it, and I will not tolerate it. I tolerate much. My tolerance is much lower.
And I think a lot of guys today need to learn how to read the room.
And I will say there's a difference between A, reading the room, and B, there's a difference between a man who will read the room, get the room wrong, and take responsibility for it versus a man who will say, well, it was just a joke. Like, because if you make a joke, you're entitled to make that joke, in my opinion. Like, free speech, you can say whatever the fuck you want to say. But there are consequences to what you say.
Always the consequences.
If one of the consequences is being told, hey, that's not very funny, I would appreciate it if you wouldn't say that again.
Exactly.
Then that's a fucking consequence of what you just said, and, like, just take responsibility for it. But you as a man, and I know this about you as a man will take responsibility and be like, for the most part, not always, because you've not always taken responsibility for your bad jokes. But for the most part, you will, one comes to mind in particular, we won't go.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
But for the most part, you'll take responsibility and be like, oh, that wasn't funny? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. And then you'll just stop. And I've done it too, like not.
Well, we've all thought something was funny, or we've all, yes. I mean, we've all done it. It's when we say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, or I didn't.
And then correcting that behavior, because an
Correct.
apology without corrective behavior is manipulation.
Also, you also need to learn how to speak out when somebody else is doing something.
Well, you say that, but women didn't always have that protection to be able to do that. And some still don't. When your workplace, when she speaks out and you're not in the room, is she safe to speak out?
Well, and I will say this.
No. The answer is no.
You're correct. But there has been instances at some of the places I work at where a man has done something to a woman and the woman didn't say anything. But I've been like, hey, what the hell are you doing? You can't do that. And the woman be like, no, it's fine. But like, no, it's not.
Because they don't want to lose their job.
And then the man be like, no, she said it's fine, so I can do it. But then I have to sit there and go, well, she said it's fine.
And I get that. But again, as a woman, I remember being a young woman in positions and getting backed into that corner. And
I've also
not having the maturity or the courage.
And
when she says, you're right, it's not fine, and then you're not in the room and she still pays for it.
And I've also I've had to kind of encourage women when something happens, but you need to file a harassment report or a lawsuit.
That's not always easy.
You pay every time. You pay with your promotion. You pay with your job. They will.
Oh yeah, she lost her job.
Exactly.
And I'm like, you have a lawsuit, and she's like, well, I don't want to pursue it because I'm going through all this other stuff. I'm like,
she's not going to win it.
And then I'm like, and see, here's the thing.
They can fire you at will in Tennessee.
Well, yes, that's true.
And you're not going to win it.
And then I told her,
fire you for in Tennessee, but it's very small and it's hard to prove.
Well, she also had she didn't get fired. She quit.
Yes.
And then I had a hard conversation with her and I was like, hey, listen, if you let this happen without doing anything, you're letting the next woman get hurt too. And she was like,
I still think that you have a lot of privilege when you say that.
And I absolutely do.
Understanding. Because you could have said it. You could have written it up. You could have done it for her.
Well, I wasn't there when it happened.
But then it's her word against theirs. And
even though
it's not easy.
And I get it. But when there's documentation and there's messages and a whole bunch of other stuff, and I'm like, listen, you have a case.
That particular person, I will say, did have a case, but
even their lawyer, she talked to, was like, no, we can win this. We have enough here, and you have enough people that could come forward. And when I had people, the owners, come to me and say and ask me, and I go, yeah, no, I will tell them the truth, and them going, oh, okay, so if somebody pops along, we definitely need to keep them away from you. And be like, yeah.
I mean, and I agree with you, and I understand, but I will also say, you know, I know in the military right now an officer who was sexually harassed and made a complaint, and then it went through her commander and it was found not substantiated. She was the one who got a letter of reprimand.
And
I just want you, and this was in the last 2 years.
I will say that
do
people
wanna
who
say-
have privilege should use their privilege to speak up.
Yes, definitely use your privilege to speak up. But I also think that there's something a little, like, it's not my responsibility as a woman to save other women. Like, I can't do that because I don't have the privilege to do that always. Like, I can sit here and say all day, like, you can make the argument, okay, so this is something that I don't know if I've shared on this podcast before, but I've shared it publicly before, so I don't really give a fuck. But I'm a incest survivor. And you can say all day long that, like, me not speaking up caused other people to be hurt. But I didn't have the privilege to speak up. Because if I had spoken up, I would have gotten hurt more. Because I tried to speak up and I was hurt more. So you have to apply that to basically every person who doesn't have privilege in every situation. They might not have the ability to speak up to save other people because you can't ask someone to go against their own self-interest.
I will also say this, and you and I have had this conversation before, but sometimes somebody's got to take an ass whooping so other people can be safe.
Yeah, but you can't, like, you can believe that and you can agree to take that ass whooping, but you can't ask other people to do it for you.
No. Hey, listen, and I agree, but sometimes if you're the one that has to take the ass whooping, so other people can be safe.
The ass whooping. I took that ass whooping every time, and I continued to stand up, and it didn't do me any goddamn good, but I still tried.
I mean, and to kind of,
like, there are court records.
And we are gaining ground because people can do that, but we must recognize the personal sacrifice whenever someone stands up.
yeah, I was about to say, if Martin Luther King Jr. didn't take the ass whoopings that he took,
You mean the murder?
the murder as well. No, well, before the murder, all the ass whoopings he took, all the black
very true.
protesters that fucking took those ass whoopings so they can get civil rights, not equal rights. He's got some rights, maybe not all of them.
I mean, that's true.
Some people got to take an ass whooping so other people don't get hurt.
But some people are just, and
Yeah,
some people,
and
and
the
some
thing
people
is-
have other people depending on them. That it's not just them. But if I stand up at work and get fired, my whole family's going home. So it's not. I mean, there are
And-
so
and you-
many other pieces that.
Yeah, there are a lot of
You
variables.
definitely have some
I mean,
circumstances
There
and
are a lot of
whatnot.
variables.
there's a lot of variables.
I
Or
don't
I'm
think-
sick and I need the health insurance.
Yeah.
Or I'm, there's so many other variables. Like you're not walking in their shoes. You can only stand behind them and offer your support.
And I get that.
I think that is a great place because we've been going for like 2 hours now. I think that is a great place.
But that
for-
is also a great statement for politics, though. Is sometimes as a politician, you're going to have to take an ass whooping so other people don't have to.
I do think that politics, along with other things, are building blocks, and we
Because
don't always
the
get there. We don't
definition-
always get there in one race, right? We don't always win the battle, but the hope is that we eventually win the war.
Yep.
Because if you break down the word of the politician, what is the word of a politician break down to in its Latin form? Person of the people.
All right, and with that, we thank you for listening. Be sure to listen to us on all the